You are in for a treat today. We have world famous author, artist, teacher, incredible artist, Juliette Aristides. Hi, Juliette.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for having me.
So nice to see you. It's been a while. I think last time I saw you in person was at the FACE conference, probably.
That was the first ever FACE conference. Was it the first or it was? It
Yeah,
was.
it was. And you brought a whole bunch of people from the Seattle area.
We had a blast, and there was a giant swimming pool, so it wasn't art, but it was all. I mean, it was art and tons of extracurricular fun.
Yeah, it was a nice spot. Miami was wonderful. Well, we haven't been able to do the FACE conference this year, but we will do it next year in Williamsburg, Virginia again. We originally had Baltimore, but because of COVID, we wanted to avoid Baltimore for a while. And so anyway, next year we'll be doing it. So Juliette, tell me, you've authored how many books now?
6.
6?
Yeah, 6 books.
How do you find time for that?
The first one was done. I'm not great with dates, so the first one was done probably 15 years ago, and so they're spaced about 2 years apart. And so you just kind of, there's so many different aspects in creating a book, from image collecting to getting contemporary realists to contribute to the writing of it, that and the research and all that, that can normally find little odds and ends of bits of time to work on certain aspects of the book. Do you know what I mean? Well, you're the busiest person I've ever met, so you would have to tell me how you manage.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I was just approached by a publisher, and they asked me to do about a 250-page coffee table book. And I started thinking about how my life would change when I had to do a book like that. They were going to give me, I don't know, 8 months or 9 months to do it. And I thought, I don't think I could do a book and do anything else. It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a wise choice if you step back from that one, Eric, and we devote 100% of your energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And maybe I'll do it one day, but right now, especially with under these circumstances, it seems busier than ever. What was life like for you during COVID times?
Well, in March, and Seattle was hit, early. It was one of
Very
the
early.
early to feel it, and so we went home like all the big tech companies, Microsoft and Amazon, and everyone would send their, IT workers home, and then games followed shortly thereafter, and the public schools went out the same as everywhere else. So we had to jump and figure out how to teach online. So I didn't think we'd be able to do it, but we got the entire atelier up online. We mercifully didn't lose a student, and everyone was able to work from home. And, of course, it's not ideal because we miss the in-person community, but we met as a group on Zoom, who knew, right? And it was actually very nice for all of us to be able to meet in some capacity during that time. And now we're back, we're in person. We have taken over the entire building. I'm at Gage Academy of Fine Art. All their in-person classes are now remote. And so myself and another atelier have a run of the building, and so we have all the room we need to spread everybody out, wear masks, but we're back in the studio, which
Oh,
feels
that's great. That's terrific. So the school is called the Gage Academy. Is that right? All right.
Yeah.
Terrific.
An atelier within, it's a little hard to picture unless you're here, but it's almost like the École de Beaux-Arts, where you have a bigger institution and you would have the smaller ateliers within a larger structure.
Nice.
So there's ateliers, 2 of them are full-time, myself and the KOH atelier, which is Mark Kang O'Higgins.
Oh, terrific. Well, we're going to hear a lot more about you, and we're going to see you do something today. What are you going to do?
Well, I was thinking about what we should do today, and I was thinking of doing a sketch, but then I'm going to be doing that with Realism Live. I'll be drawing from the figure from start to finish. You'll get a chance to see that. So I thought maybe it would give a taste of my day if you actually just got to join me at my easel for a project that I have going on anyway.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a painting I started last week, and you'll be able to see the change in lighting, and we'll be able to discuss a little bit of how artists can manipulate the truth in their pieces when you have a lighting or that kind of thing. So
Outstanding. All right. So we'll be back with Juliette in just a minute. Juliette is going to get her camera prepared, and I'm going to she's going to hop off, and we'll be right back. Thank you, Juliette.
thanks, Eric.
All right. So we have Juliette Aristides from the Gage Academy, and the author, would she say 5 or 6 books? And you want to look her up, Google her, and get those books. They're all excellent. She really raised the bar in book publishing for artists, and some of the finest, highest quality books that I've seen, and really, really worth having every single one of them. So just buy them all. You'll never regret it. I guarantee it. It's fabulous, especially if you're really into figurative art or drawing or portraiture, painting in a classical style. I think this would be something you certainly would want. Well, my name is Eric Rhodes. I'm the publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine. Today is number 183 in a row. Every single day since we started about, maybe a week after quarantine where I lived, and we just wanted to do something for you every day to kind of keep you preoccupied with art, keep you focused on something that was fun, doing something that you love, because we didn't want you to be sitting around worrying and focusing on the virus all the time. And of course, after that, a lot of other things have happened that have made life pretty concerning for all of us. And so I want to make sure that you're staying positive and upbeat and focusing on something that you love. And hopefully, if you're watching this, you love art or you want to learn about art. If you're new today for the very first day, thank you for joining us. We have a family of artists who are all around the world. You might see the Dreamliners, which is a little group that kind of popped up. Yay, Dreamliners. You'll see them in the comments section. We are running into a lot of new people every day. They don't know we exist. And so our company is called Streamline Publishing. And if you go to streamlinepublishing.com and hit everything, you'll see all the different things we do: magazines, newsletters, events, conventions, trips, retreats for artists, products for artists, art marketing, instruction, blogs, art instructional videos, and 3 different brands there. That's just a lot going on. So check it out. It's streamlinepublishing.com/everything. Okay. Now, also, I wanted to mention to you, I mentioned Russia. I wanted to mention to you that I am taking a group to Russia. And if you want to learn more about that, it's going to be next fall. We're going to leave on, I think I'm going to leave on September 10th or 11th. And we're going to do 2 weeks in Russia. We will be touring all the things you have to see in Russia, the beautiful buildings, the great museums. We have a private entry. Only because of our relationships, we have a private entry into the Great Hermitage Museum. You're going to be able to see it privately. Pretty amazing. One of the biggest and most important museums in the world. And so we're also going into the small towns, the old villages that live like they did 100 years ago, where there's no running water. They carry their water in buckets through the streets. There's cows and pigs roaming around in the streets. It's a lot of fun and very colorful that time of year. And so anyway, come over with us. It's paintrussia.com. You can learn about that. Welcome back, Juliette.
Hi, can they see the object that I'm drawing from, or can you flash for a minute are you going to flash it full screen?
Yeah.
And so I am, Eric, it's okay to come back on. I just wanted them to see for a second that I'll be painting this jug, and this is a painting over here.
Okay, and you might want to move it to the side just a little bit more to show more of the jug, because everything over on the right side of your easel, I think it's the right side, is, there we go. There, perfect. Just a touch more. Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, well, I'm going to let you get started, and I will be reading comments and questions from time to time.
Eric, first, a quick question. How many people are going to Russia with you?
I'm only able to take 50 people with me, and that's because in the small towns, we can only find 50 rooms. And of course, it's the size of a single bus. And so 50 people is the answer.
Okay, that sounds like an amazing trip.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. So I thought today that I would show you a project that I'm working on already and have you jump in at the mid stage of a painting. Um, Before getting started on this, I did a quick value sketch. And some people do their thumbnail sketches in paint. It's just as easier for me to do this with charcoal and white chalk on toned paper. You can hear this kind of rough, scratching sound. That's the paper. It's like sandpaper. It's got a little bit of grit to it, which holds the chalk and the charcoal. And so for this, I often just do it just very broadly, just to get overall placement and decide if I like the composition.
Mhm.
I have a student named Jane who does pastel work, and she showed me a great technique for doing landscape painting in pastel and just using black and white. And so I just started using it for still life to decide how I want to frame it, how I want to crop it, if I prefer it this way, if I want to move a horizontal image, and so forth. Um, and so I decided on this composition, and I started painting it last week when we had all the smoke from the Oregon and California fires, and
Mhm.
it turned the sky really orange. And so that's why you're going to notice a difference in the lighting of the still life now and the lighting that I painted it in at the time. But it's not uncommon for me to have be painting it multiple times a day and just choose one that I'm going to fix on the canvas. But other times I can work on things like finishing the pot, as long as I keep the overall color choices similar to what I decided on when I first set up the composition. For my painting, I'm mostly using small filbert brushes, and I do that because I like the flat, how much paint these sort of filberts hold when you turn them on the side. And then they're a great drawing tool. When you angle them differently, you can get a very clean, sharp line. For my palette, I use a wooden, just handheld one, and I often just clip it underneath my easel so that I don't have to hold it. But I'll put it over here so that you can see it while I'm painting. So I don't think we have much time together today, but I'll just show you a few things that I think about when I'm working on a painting
We
mid-stage.
have about 35 minutes.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, and we can't see your palette very well, but that's not the end of the world.
Okay, well, I'll try to hold it up for you when I'm mixing. So the first thing that I'm thinking about when I'm in a mid-stage of the painting, even if I've drawn it out ahead of time, uh, often it will shift when I'm painting. And of course, you want the freedom to be able to paint without worrying about losing your drawing. So I paint with a fair amount of freedom. When I start, um, I'll often use the biggest brush that I can fit comfortably in the space, and then switch to the smaller brushes at this mid stage. Uh, so when I'm working on something like this now, I'll take a minute or two before starting to flick my eyes back and forth between what I'm painting and the painting itself, and get a kind of laundry list in my mind of things that I've missed or things that need to be brought into sharper focus or greater accuracy. And the reason why I do that right at the beginning before painting is because our eyes grow tired as we look at something. You've often experienced this with, you're very excited, you buy something new, and it's all you notice for the first day or two. And then after a week, you forget it's even there. And because our eyes grow accustomed to things that we see all the time. And so with painting, it's the same thing. By the end of a painting day, we can't see it clearly anymore. So we get this kind of fresh opportunity at the beginning of the day to decide what it is we want to work on. And then I get this laundry list in my mind, and then that's my marching orders for the morning or whatever, the afternoon that I'm painting. So for this, I'm going to go through the piece and make a few drawing corrections. And so I'm turning just my brush to the side and actually just going in and putting a few lines that will remind me, hey, this is the area you thought needed a little bit more work, either through drawing corrections or value or color. Eric, do you find time to do any painting these days?
I've done a lot of painting this summer outdoors, but I've done none indoors because I don't really have I haven't set up a space yet for that. So yes, I'm working on a big, about 30 by 40 plein air piece. I have it set up in the woods, and I just take it out and set it up in the same spot about 4 days in a row now.
That's great. Are you loving it?
I do love it. I prefer to paint from nature and life whenever I can.
Yeah.
You have someone watching who said, "Small world, your husband was their math teacher."
That's really funny. He's a really good math teacher. I'm not saying that, he really is.
You have people watching from Brazil, from Italy, from Egypt.
From Italy. Hi, Linda. I bet that's Linda.
Yeah, it is Linda. England.
So what I'm working on this edge is I just lightening up, getting rid of that contour, and then transitioning a little more, softening the edge on one side. So how you manipulate your edges through your painting has a lot to do with how the piece lands, when it feels finished or not finished, often has a lot to do with the edges. So finding areas that need to be transitioned more or entirely lost or found or more crisply found. That's essentially, if you think of, Eric likes to paint outside and in nature, but these little clues that you find when you're walking along the path, you'll see a path like a little dip in the road, or you'll see a twig that's broken or whatever, that will tell you, if you're in the deep woods, sometimes it's not so easy to see the path, and you'll look around for all these little clues that will tell you the right way to go. And in painting, our eyes kind of do something similar. The artist is kind of guiding the eye through, telling you which way you should look by softening edges, saying, don't look here, you keep moving, or sharpening an edge and saying, if this is a viewpoint, we want you to stop. So governing edges kind of govern the eye and in the flow through the picture. So down through here, I'm going to lighten the ground plane. And in that way, I'll be able to find that edge, but then I'm going to lose the edge that I had originally painted.
What is the best way to really learn to paint a round form like that? Start with a ball?
Yep. So it's funny, that practice of painting, form painting, making something appear round or fat, exercises to that. You've often seen people painting the value sphere, which is, if you just get a ball, it could even be, something, a pet's toy, like a little plastic ball, a light bulb that you spray paint white, doesn't really matter what it is, and then set it up with good lighting, and then practice, an uncomplicated object. Well, actually, the perfect sphere is very complicated because any distortion in it really makes it look funny. But these exercises, John Ruskin wrote about it in his Elements of Drawing. So they go back hundreds of years, the practice of just using a sphere, or you could get eggs everybody has eggs, and just light them with even a light, a desk light is fine. Just make sure that you're able to control the lighting so you don't have a lot of bouncing light coming from other windows and other sources. So you'll see here that I have my main light source as a window, and then I don't have a lot of bouncing light coming from other spots.
So when you did this originally, according to what I see on the painting, it looks like it was almost a orange afternoon light, probably based on the smoke. Now the light that I see you painting looks like it's reflections from daylight. Are you you're mixing lights? Is this reflective of what that original day was like?
No, the original day was truly orange. The sky looked really pink and orange, and I'm hoping that I could get the painting done in time while I saw that, but I couldn't. Had other stuff going on. So yeah, I'm going to mix the light, and in the end, the overall hue will still be warm. I'll wait and finish painting this in the afternoon when the light is a little more, a little more atmospheric, a little bit less cold. The issue with natural light is, it's incredibly beautiful, but part of its beauty is that it changes. You're constantly seeing other colors in there, and at some point you have to make a decision. I'm sure the same thing when you're painting outside. One minute you'll look up and something is violet, and then the next thing you'll look and it inexplicably becomes, yellow green, and you have to make a choice. Yeah. Eric, did you always paint plein air, or did you start as something else when you first got into painting?
Who's interviewing here? Who here, Juliette?
Oh, I'm super sorry. I was just curious.
I started painting. It's a very long, complicated story, but I ended up studying under a guy who was trained by Frank Riley, Ives Gamble, and Signora Simi in Florence, who was her father was Filippo Simi, I believe, and he studied directly under Jerome. And so he really taught me, and so I started out doing portraiture, and we were doing basically copies of posters and things like that. It was not a proper way to learn. I didn't know that at the time. And then we moved to California when I started a .com, and so I painted in the back bedroom, and I painted landscapes and portraits. But when my wife got pregnant, she said, "Get the smell of paint out of the house, please." So I moved to the garage, and she said, "Further away, please." And so I started going outdoors, and the only chance I got to paint was painting outdoors, and that's when I really started plein air painting.
Yeah, that's amazing. So who was the guy?
His name was Jack Jackson, someone that nobody really ever heard of. I was talking to someone who went to school with him at the same time and remembered him, but he was never very well known. He was a very good painter, but he spent his life teaching.
What an amazing time to study with Frank Riley, and then such a mixture of influences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Riley was at the Art Students League, right? Yeah.
Yes, he was, and Riley was taught by Dean Cornwall.
Really, yeah. It's interesting, all these cross currents of influences in the art world, and different things that capture the imagination in different parts of the world at different times.
Well, think about all the people that you've taught over the years, and now you've got people you've taught probably starting their own schools or their own ateliers or teaching.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got people who I've trained who have started their own ateliers, and who are, who teach and have been doing it with multiple generations of their own students. So I feel like I'm a great grandma or something. I feel like, I did what they've done, and it's a wonderful feeling to see it being
Well, that's the magic of this, is that, when somebody tells me they're self-taught, I think that it's a shame because they wasted a lot of time learning. It's not wasted, but they spent a lot of time learning it on their own when they could have learned from someone who had techniques passed down through generations that would have saved them a tremendous amount of time. And that's one of the reasons I started doing these videos, because I knew there were people around the world that would never get a chance to go to something like the Gage Academy. And so it's a way to touch lives and touch the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's kind of the cult of genius in a way that if you're truly brilliant, you've learned everything yourself. And it wasn't Mark Twain, but it sounds like something Mark Twain would have said. It was somebody from that time. I just read it a couple days ago and can't remember the originator of the quote, but he said, "Whoever is self-taught was taught by a very ignorant teacher indeed." You've got, but in the past, people who were brilliant were given the gift of more education, not less education.
Yeah.
Part of teaching is I love to study. I've never grown, and that's was the big draw of me for doing the books, was this just all the research, the chance to learn and follow all these rabbit trails into the past.
I found the same thing when I was doing my books, and also I'm constantly reading. I have a stack of books at my bed, and some of them I reread 2 or 3 times or 5 or 6 times, and some of them are new, but I just can't seem to get enough of art books. And I love to go into antique stores and find old art books and find things that I've never read before. It's fabulous.
Eric, who's one of the books that you would have reread multiple times?
Well, one of the ones I reread a lot is Edgar Payne, Composition on Outdoor Painting. And then the other one would be, I'm trying to think of his name, Emil Carlson's book on painting. So those are 2 of them.
That sounds really great. Those are 2 great books to read. I got Jeff Legg texted me that a book he read recently and really liked and wanted me to read is called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
I just bought that.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to text them that I did start it. And so which chapter are you in, Eric?
I haven't started reading it. I have this sickness. Anytime I hear about a book, I buy it on Amazon and usually for my iPad, and then I just read them as I can get to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. She talks a lot. It's written very casually. It's very written. It's very colloquial the way it's written. Very just very down to earth about the act of creativity and addressing things that artists are always thinking and talking about, like what do you do with fear? That the fear of starting new projects, and what is the nature of inspiration? Is inspiration something that's uniquely yours? Does it get passed along? And she's a believer that inspiration is kind of a free floating. It's almost like its own intellect that's free floating in the world and kind of just visits people. And if you're not receptive to it, so for example, say you have an idea like I'm going to start the plein air conference, and she said you're visited by these sort of gifts, and if you're in a space in your life and you have the courage to take it on, it will stay with you. But if you don't, it kind of leaves you and goes to someone else, and someone else would have started it, which is kind of an intriguing idea.
It's interesting because I had never read that, but I just wrote that very thing. I wrote about how ideas and inspiration come to each of us, and if we don't receive them, they leave and they go somewhere else. And that was one of the hardest things for me in my career, is to I had some ideas that I thought these things could be done, and I actually went to some scientists and I said these things could be done, and they could change this or change that in very specific areas. And they said it's it's against the law of physics. It's not possible. I said, yeah, I think it could be. What if we did this or did that? No, it's not possible. So I gave up on them, and then they ended up being big ideas that somebody else did, proved, and became multi-billion-dollar ideas. One of them was in the area of internet radio, which I did change the technology in internet radio, and all the stuff we're doing now, and streaming audio and Spotify and all of those things was based on some technology that my CTO and I developed. And when I first interviewed him, I interviewed 20 engineers. I said, this is what I want to do. And 20 engineers said, Eric, it's not possible. It can't be done. And the last one said, Eric, it's not possible, but I'll figure out how to do it. So I hired him, and we got a bunch of patents and changed that world. So when things come to you, you just have to be able to grab them. And some people say, well, why me? Why not you?
Yeah, exactly. And she talked about that, whenever you get an idea and inspiration like that, there's an element of fear that accompanies it that, because first of all, how much work it's going to be, follow up on any one of these little ideas of inspiration, and also the risk and gamble and no guarantee of success. And she said, just expect fear to accompany you on every journey, but just don't let it drive, and that makes a lot.
The fear has never been a problem for me. I mean, maybe it was in the early days, but the thing that was always hard for me is because I'm one of these people who wants to be liked, and people would tell me my ideas are stupid, or sometimes they were outright rude. And in the beginning, I would listen to them, and then they'd end up being good ideas that somebody else did. So anytime somebody tells me an idea is stupid now, I think, it must be a good idea. And so it actually has the opposite effect on me now. And so, the plein air convention, I went to my team, a very small team of people, and I said, we're going to do this. And my bookkeeper said to me, Eric, if you do it and it fails, you'll be bankrupt. I said, it won't fail. We need to do it. And she said, I caution you against it. And so we did it, and it worked, thankfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting that the last two books I did were workbooks, and when I first proposed them, there weren't workbooks that you drew that were hardback books, and the publisher just couldn't wrap their mind around that. And the initial publisher said no, and the other was really skeptical, and then talked to their marketing team, who ended up loving it. But the whole thing was drawn out years because of this kind of disbelief. And then by the time it was published, there were a whole bunch that were already out using that method. Mine's different, but it just shows that not everyone can see what you see.
That's right.
See it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we've got looks like about 10 minutes left, Juliette. So can you kind of talk about what you've been doing?
Yeah, I'm mostly just carving out these like little shapes. And with metal, not, some parts are wrapping form where they're a continuous surface that you want to have connect across to one another, and other parts aren't. And so with metal, it's a lot like, when you pour oil on water, it beads up and it doesn't transition softly all over. So trying to capture that. And so finding all these little shapes. And so I'll start to paint in some of the handle. And then when I have time later and the light's a little bit better, right now it's pouring rain, I'll start to get in the transition between the windowsill and the wall, and then adjust the edges through here, and then look for finishing points. When I'm looking to finish something, I just kind of let my eye scroll across the picture.
Uh-huh.
And, wherever my eye stops, I fix it. I just look for areas that grab my eye, and then I transition them. That's pretty much how I go through and finish.
Now you're close to having what they call a tangent there, where one surface meets the other. Is that something you're going to end up going over that ledge
Oh,
a little bit?
yeah, absolutely. I'll probably shuffle the whole thing forward. Yeah, these coincidences are kind of uh, not great in painting because they collapse the space. So what I'll end up doing is when I fill out I can even do it now. When I fill this out, I'll push it in a little bit that way.
Uh-huh.
Let's
Now,
see.
we had West Frazier on the other day, and he told me something I'd never heard. He said he went through colors and said, these are the things that are always warm. These are the things that are always cool. And he said, inanimate objects are always cool. Anything that's wet is always cool. Do you have any belief that, do you believe that theory? Because you're painting a metal object that looks to me like part of it is warm.
Oh yeah, you always want to uh, use your eyes and have everything bring you back to life. What it is, life meaning, whatever it is you're painting from. The reason why we work as often as we can from uh, not, sometimes you have to work from photographs, but often working from life gives this sort of relationship where you do have this fluctuation and you can see periods of movement and you can see parts, movement in the light and that kind of thing. Um, and so sometimes one area is going to look warm and then another time it looks cool and that kind of thing. And so you don't want to be too formulaic. You want just enough. Um, I was always told that on the figure you have warm lights, um, warm local lights, cool transitionary shadows, halftones, um, warm shadows, cool reflected light, and that kind of, and even I think in places like Delacroix's journals, he wrote about things like that as well. And so if you look at the work of Rubens and others, you're going to see overall, you're going to see rhythms like that. But it really messed me up when I was painting because, uh, the warm local light is pretty darn cool. It's
Hey,
not.
West Frazier is speaking up here. He says, Eric, warm and cool is a relationship, not a definite rule. Okay, good. All right. Thank
Yeah,
you for that.
that's exactly right. It's the relationship. That's exactly right, Wes. That's like, yeah, it's a series of relationships. So that he said it really well right there. You're just
Relationships in the painting and the surrounding areas, he said.
yeah,
I took a David LaFell workshop last year, and
what?
David said, I was arguing about, I said, the shadows I'm seeing are cool. And he said, make them warm. He said, even if you see cool, make them warm when you're painting flesh. How do you
Right.
feel about that?
Well, often I do the exact same thing, to be honest. Sometimes I'll get like a burst of like cool reflected light in a spot, but overall, I tend to keep them pretty warm. Um,
Oh, and West
yeah,
is saying you have cool light, which means warm shadow. Okay. Thank you,
yeah.
West.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. The main thing for people to look out for is, what he's saying that there's an undulation of warm and cool, and sometimes it's warm and warmer, or cool and very cool, and that's enough to make that feeling of that transition. So it creates life and liveliness and all that.
I think from my particular perspective, understanding color temperature has been the hardest thing for me to learn.
Yeah, we
Other
spent.
other concepts other concepts make sense to me, but I was watching Camille Preswatic yesterday and watching how she handles color and how she handles warm and cool, and things that she saw as warm, I saw as cool, and vice versa. So
Yeah, we in the atelier, my atelier here at Gage, we spent half a year on it, where they just literally use two colors of, a burnt sienna or an ultramarine or viridian, and they have to make, these paintings that feel believable and light filled, and they do. You know, and so by limiting the amount of color you have going on, you know, limiting, you know, it's like kind of like when you're going to do bowling with kids, and they put up those things so that you get no gutter balls, and that's kind of like limiting the palette, so there's no gutter balls.
That's a great analogy.
So Eric, thank you for having me. Is there any other questions or anything before we wrap up? Or
well, let's see here. We've got about 3, 4, 5 minutes yet. Let's see if there's any other questions in here. There's a lot of comments. I'm just flipping through real quick. Richard asked, I missed the beginning. Can I see it again? Yes, it's in replay, Richard. You can watch it. And all of the ones we've done over 183 days are on YouTube at Streamline Art Video. I think it's just comments, lots of comments. People are really enjoying watching you, enjoying what you're doing, enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for being here. It's nice that you tuned in to watch art rather than, you know, the news or any of the other things that could pull people away to focus on something that's life-giving and elevating to the spirit. Is really a great choice. Yeah.
I agree. I just don't even want to watch. I want to put my head in the sand.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was talking to my mom this morning, and she said she's turning on the news also, and I'm saying, but you can miss something really horrible that's happening. And she said, that's the point.
Well, I have a philosophy, and that is, if there's something I need to know, it'll get to me.
It does. It has.
And you know, my wife loves to watch the news. I won't watch, and when I'm up here at the lake, I say, don't even tell me. I don't want to know. It's just because I don't want to get my my mood changed. Mood is so important for me.
Yeah. I was with someone after they had a heart operation, and they had just come out, and they were doing well, and they started talking about politics, and all the little buttons went red and started beeping, and nurses came in. And it had a correlation between discussing, you know, between what we're discussing and, you know, our physiology.
Yeah. Hey, Juliette, since we're kind of running out of time, why don't you go ahead and wrap up and put yourself back on camera, because some people joined late. They'd like to see your face and get to know you for a second. Can we do that?
Let me stand up.
You guys, thumbs up and applause. We got to watch Juliette painting. Thank you so much. Not so much as a demo as it was just observing, which is sometimes the best way to do it.
I'm going to turn this so I can stand up.
I like your big sunflowers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll be doing, whoops, sorry. Yeah, I'll be doing a demo from start to finish at Realism Live. So I thought today getting a chance to kind of be with me as I work in the studio might be fun for people.
Yeah, and you're going to do a drawing demo, is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to do a drawing demo.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this today. It was a pleasure to reconnect with you, and we had some good times when you came to Austin and stayed in the world famous artist cabin. That was a while back, but we've got a whole new setup since you were there last. We built a sound stage and bought all new equipment, and it's really pretty amazing.
You're amazing, Eric. Thanks for having me, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Juliette.